first, like, thank you guys for having me again. It's really nice seeing you guys again. It's weird to think it's been almost a year since we've been on the screen together.
Yeah, it's blame me for that. Yeah, life just gets really interesting, man.
Life happens.
Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
bad, just like busy and
No.
unfortunately, Star Wars podcasting and videos is not my full time gig. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is it's not the full time gig. Probably never will be. I can't actually imagine myself actually being like a full time YouTuber. Like that just doesn't. Not anything wrong with it, but I'm like, I can't actually picture that, and it. I don't know. It's too risky.
Not as
At least right
feasible
now.
now as it was. Yeah. I remember back 2016, 2017. It's always awful when you come up with an idea, but you don't do anything with it, and then someone does it, and you're like, oh man, it should have been me.
Yeah.
But I was like in 2016, 17, I was like, I lived under a rock for so many years. Like I didn't get the internet until I was like 16. So like a lot of things were new. But there were so many movies that everyone talked about that I had not seen and I still haven't seen. Like I haven't seen The Lion King still. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if someone like recorded themselves watching a movie they hadn't seen? Nah, no one will ever do that. And then flash forward to now, everybody's doing it to the point where you're kind of wondering. I'm like, okay, I almost don't believe that you haven't seen Star Wars. I feel like
Mhm.
you're pretending like he's his father. What? I'm like, no, no. I
Well,
knew before I saw the movie.
yeah. Well, that was one of the first things I was going to ask you. Have you? I mean, you have some really awesome theories. I mean, I see Tony, especially in the chats, always like Travis, great theory. Have you ever thought about doing any like content creation or YouTube or anything like that?
So I skateboard. Oh, did you see the one that I sent you? Did it
I
send?
did. Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about that later. Uh huh.
Okay, okay, because that one's something I could actually see happening. But um, yeah, I skateboard and stuff, and I've done for a while I did a skateboarding podcast with a couple friends. But over the past couple of years, I didn't really realize that it's not a talent. I don't think coming up with speculations and theories. It's just having a creative mind, and we all
Hmm.
have it. You just have to be in the right headspace to do it. But then like people would tell me, like, Travis, you should people tell me all the time, like, man, you should do something with this. My mother was over today and she said, Travis, like you should do content creation. I should do content creation. I'm like, Mom, please. No, I'm like, I don't want to see
Yeah.
that,
No.
Mom. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, but yeah, it's something that I'm strongly going to consider. And people like Tony and you are pushing me over the edge where I have to quote Ghostbusters, we have the tools, we have the talent. I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what? I may as well. It's figuring out, like, you would know more than anybody, you guys, like, what's the jumping off point? What's your niche? How do you
Hmm.
differentiate yourself from everyone else? So for me, it's just figuring that out, but it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, I would say like the niche is important, right? Like trying to figure out like who your target audience is going to be. And I will say like you could consume yourself in that, right? Like there's vidIQ, Think Media, there's all these channels out there that I watch on that exactly what you're talking about. Like how do you find your niche? What's your target audience? And then
Same.
sometimes it's like just go talk about what you're passionate about. And the YouTube algorithm is really good at finding the people obviously that you want to are similar to you, and because your video is going to go to people who want to watch it basically. So I don't know, you really should think about it. It's now is like the best time to get into it because I think Star Wars is, with especially all the news that's come out this week, like now's the perfect time to jump into it, right? So you just got to do it. What does Think Media say? He says
Just
Sean
press,
Cannell,
just press record.
you got to just
I
press
know, I
record,
know,
man.
I know.
Yeah.
Hit fear in the face. I know. I've seen,
Yep.
I've listened to the videos
Well,
too.
and I think the reason that we jumped into it is like we were talking constantly on the phone of just like what's happening in Star Wars, what's happening in Marvel, just what's happening in general, and just kind of about our lives. And we're just like, we talk so much, to each other, why not just get our ideas out there? Like, sure, they may be just two idiots on YouTube talking about it, but it's like at this point, what do we have else to lose? Like, at least we could get at least a little bit of, or even if it's just one person, like having the same idea as us. Like, I think that would have been cool to have, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really why
Yeah,
we started it.
yeah, and you guys did it, and you guys got to over 1,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. That's impressive. Like that's like the first like hill. Well, I think the
Yeah.
first hill is probably 1 subscriber. So that's pretty easy because it's usually yourself.
Yep, exactly. I was
But
gonna say.
yeah,
I think for me it was 4 subscribers because I managed to weasel in three of my own, or maybe Journeyman was one of those too. But 4 subscriber, I was like, we did it. Yeah,
I
but
think the
no,
biggest hurdle, like you said, is just pressing start, though. Like
yeah.
that's really, after that, you just have to deal with the personality
Well, I don't
traits of
even
yourself
know.
with
Yeah,
editing.
the
For
very first one that we did was, we remember Journeyman, we were just doing it over, was it, I think it was Skype, and like we were just recording our Skype session, and then I did a little bit of editing to it and just threw it on there, and then I mean, obviously I primarily publish the content, it's my voice and all the videos and stuff, but that's like, we really, I think our niche, if someone were to ask me what Star Wars Democracy's niche is, it's like just wild speculation that really doesn't probably get anyone else excited but myself. But that's what I'm saying, right? Like, I'm making videos that make me happy and get me excited for Star Wars, and then whoever the YouTube algorithm wants to poke and prod to bring them in, hey, I'm good with it. That was what I was going to actually ask you next, Travis. Do you remember, how did you find the channel? Was it a live stream, or was it a video? Do you remember?
well, I think it goes back to exactly what you said. People really like to talk about Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
People like to physically have physical interactions involving Star Wars. Like in that, like when you would have lightsaber fights as a kid, or like, I can speak for myself. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent already. But at school, we would go, and during recess, we'd find the wooded area. We'd pick up a stick that kind of resembled a lightsaber, or if we didn't want to knock someone's eye out, we would find just the hilt length stick that kind of looked like a hilt, and we'd play with it. But going back to your question, I think I was just scrolling through. I think it's called doom scrolling, where you just scroll aimlessly through YouTube. But I was on YouTube, and I forgot which stream it was, but it was just suggested live Star Wars, and I'm like, I want to hear people talk about Star Wars right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys were very responsive and polite and inclusive of everyone in the chat, and that really stuck out, where a lot of people just ignore the live chat and stuff like that. Trust me, I've seen it a lot. And I get it. Some people, like, if you're Joe Rogan or something, you're probably not going to be looking at each comment, but it was just that attention to detail and that attention to your audience that really made you guys stand out, and it made me feel like I was part of the conversation, like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, that's partly why I like StreamYard, is because you can pull the comments on screen. It was like, we depend on the chat. I think especially when you're just talking by yourself. Like, I did a stream by myself a couple weeks ago. I think, Journeyman, were you playing basketball? I think we were talking Ahsoka season 2. I was like, we're supposed to be streaming tonight. And he's like, well, I'm playing basketball. I'm like, fair.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I left you high and dry on that one.
No, it's fine. It's funny, but it's like, you depend on the chat. Like, that's, I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. Even when we are just talking, it's like, we love it's fun to pull a chat up and a comment up and get to talk and do that. So, well, I'm glad you found it. I'm trying to think of, like, I remember about the time. I think it was around the Bad Batch season 3, probably. I think that's kind of when you popped in. Were we Star Wars Democracy yet, or were we still Star Wars Politics? Do you remember? We
I
changed
think
the
we're
name.
still Star Wars
Democracy.
Politics.
Oh, really?
Nah,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you would know.
I don't know. We've been through a couple iterations. So when the channel first started, it was Star Wars Politics. Had like a blue logo. Like, it had like SWP in the logo.
I feel like you were talking about Ventress coming back.
Yeah, yep. So probably Bad Batch. We were speculating about Bad Batch season 3 then. Because when I first started the channel, or when we first started doing like talking and making videos and stuff, Bad Batch season 2 was just coming out. Because I think the first video was in December of 2022. So Bad Batch season 2, and that's when so this is like, it's crazy how YouTube works, because you go back and watch some of those videos that I made. One of the I say this is blowing up. Blowing up to me was getting over 1,000 views at the time. But my first video to get, I was like, wow, this was honestly easier than I thought it was going to be in some ways, was a Bad Batch, 5 possible cameos in the Bad Batch season 2. It got like over 7,000 views and like over, I think, 30 subscribers. And I was like, I had only been making like just a few videos. I'm like, whenever you just get really passionate about something, and literally all I use is iMovie I literally just record my voice, put it in iMovie, throw some pictures and transitions and whatever, and it's really, really easy. So you really should consider it, because you really have some, like I said, I think our niche, the types of videos that I like to create are just like wild speculation. Probably not going to happen, but it's still fun, and it's fun to think about, in my brain at least. But you have some theories that are actually plausible, and I think could actually go somewhere.
Well, there's no limit to creativity. I feel like that's another Think Media thing. But you're gonna get sued by Think Media, because Sean Cannell and you are gonna be in court.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking about this, because I honestly, I was thinking today, I'm like, oh, what's he gonna ask me about? And it isn't that like when I think about something or speculate, it isn't that it's plausible. It's more so that I think it's more fun for me, it's more fun to take the pieces that are in front of me and move them around in a way where I could see a progression. Some people can reach and like go, well, remember the thing there's a thing in this book that was published 20 years ago that I think could come back. That's when I think there's some people who are really good about that. But that's called reaching. You're literally reaching into something that isn't in front of you. But when I come up with a theory like I did today, I literally just came up with it. I was just doing nothing. I'm like, what? Oh, the whales and everything. But I was just thinking, like, okay, these are the pieces that are in front of me. I'm gonna, like, this has happened, this ties back to this, so I'm gonna use this, and this. That's where the plausibility comes from, I think, is just taking the pieces that are in front of you, taking like what's at face value and trying and speculating based on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's more thought than I put into some of the stuff that I come up with.
It's just a different way. It's a different way of thinking. So here's a little tangent. I guess you said it was about you were interviewing me. So at my work, around Christmas of last year, they had a little Christmas decoration making station where they had the clear Christmas bulbs and some paint, so you could paint the Christmas bulbs. And I was sitting there, and I'm just like, all right, I'll do one. And I'm like, what's round? I'm like, BB-8's round, so I just started doing it like BB-8. But then I ran into a problem. BB-8 has a rounded head, but this was just a hook on the top. I'm like, well, how can I make BB-8 if he doesn't have a head? And I'm like, I could go out and buy like a foam ball and just stab it on the top and then paint over that and make it his head. But for me, that just wasn't fun. But I'm like, but I'm not using what's in front of me. That's kind of cheating. And I looked around, and then I saw on the Christmas tree right next to me, it was one of those Christmas trees that had the fake snow already like painted on it, and there were fake mistletoe like berries on it. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I plucked one of the mistletoe berries off, and it was made of foam, and it was round. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have my head. And I just painted it white, and then I put his head on it. And I took 2 of the Christmas tree hooks that were made of metal, and I clipped them, and I made his antenna. And it felt so much better because I played it like it was a game of Saw, like the movie Saw. I was just like, okay, I'm in this room. I got what's in front of me. I have to make BB-8. And that's kind of my mindset when I speculate or think about what could happen.
Just to be clear, you clipped your work's Christmas tree?
It was okay. It was one little ball about this big. I'll post a picture of it in the Discord.
Yeah,
But there
please.
was, yeah, it was just a little ball that was hanging
That
off
was
a
funny.
branch.
No, I'm just messing with you. He was like, I'm just gonna. Next thing you know, the whole tree's gone. Travis is working on arts and crafts. Oh, that's funny. So let's do this in real time. So let's talk about your theory that you submitted. Journeyman hasn't seen it because the form comes to me. But so you submitted a Ahsoka season 2 theory, right? I assume Ahsoka season 2, right?
Yeah.
Or just a theory about Thrawn. Walk us through that theory and what do you think is going to happen?
So I was walking, and it's not like a season trajectory long theory. It's just a plot point, really.
Mhm.
But I just recently watched Ahsoka all the way through, and when I got to the episode it was like after the last episode, of course, like everybody, my thought was, well, how the heck are they going to get off Peridia? We
Mhm.
have the Great Mothers and Thrawn going to Dathomir, and Sabine, Ahsoka, and Huyang are stuck on Peridia with the turtles. And I'm thinking, like, well, how are they going to get off? And I'm trying to remember, like everything. I'm very unfocused. You can tell by the way I speak. But I was just like, it came to me in pieces where I'm thinking, hold on, actually trying to think, like, what was the first thing that I thought of? Oh, it was the Great Mothers when they resurrected the stormtroopers, Thrawn's men. I
Mhm.
think they were called night troopers. But I was thinking, as they were leaving for Dathomir, the thought that was going through my head was, wait a minute, didn't the Sith kill all the Night Sisters in the Clone Wars? Wasn't it General Grievous and Count Dooku that like wiped everybody out? And wasn't it Palpatine who kind of killed, or Palpatine or Dooku who killed Asajj Ventress? And I
Mhm.
was thinking, like, aren't the mothers angry about that, or do they not know?
Yeah.
And then from there, I was thinking, like, well, eventually, especially if Asajj Ventress is going to show up in season 2 of Ahsoka, which she should
Mhm.
be showing up somewhere, and it seems like a character Dave would want to bring back,
Mhm.
especially if we're going back to Dathomir. We have the Night Sisters, we have the Sword of Talzin. My thought was, well, what if the Great Mothers figure out that the Sith killed the Night Sisters, their daughters, more or less, and the person that they're allied with was working for the greatest Sith of all, and he's involved in some way in Project Necromancer, bringing this Sith back. Wouldn't that make the mothers want to turn against him?
Yeah.
And then the thought came to me. I'm like, wait a minute. If they can use their magic to resurrect a bunch of dead stormtroopers, what about resurrecting the Purgle, the dead ones that are surrounding the entire planet of Peridia?
Mhm.
Purgle, the only way to and from Peridia. And what if they're just like, you know what, Thrawn, like, screw you, and they just resurrect all of the Purgle, well, or a few of them, and we just see like the bones forming together again, and the whatever flesh there used to be is replaced with the green magic tendrils, and that's Sabine and Ahsoka's way off of the planet.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, the answer's right in front of us. And I just noticed it. That's how they get off. That is a way to get off the planet.
Mhm.
That's all it was.
Well, let's talk about. I'm curious that a lot of people suspect that maybe that they'll get off through, like, kind of what you're saying, through the Purgle. Um, but my understanding was that they go there to die. Like, there was never any indication that they're going back and forth as like a migration route, was there? Or did they talk about that? I can't remember.
They talked about the Purgle that were going there to die.
So where do you think? Because, like, when they show up, they show up to Peridia, and then so when Ahsoka comes, when she shows up out of hyperspace, Thrawn starts firing on the whales, and then you remember the whales start jumping out of hyperspace to go somewhere else. I'm like, where'd they go? Like, they jumped out of hyperspace and did, like, they were not in the direction of, like, they didn't turn around and go backwards. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm curious on where they went, because like they go there to die, but I guess that's, I mean, maybe that's just like their migration pattern, and they just go there and they just don't go back. But who's to say that they couldn't go back? I guess like couldn't
Mhm.
when they show up. I mean, we've seen Jedi use the Force to manipulate, control various species' minds. Couldn't she just do something to make them turn right back around and go back?
Well, my first thought when you said that was that is the home of like the Great Mothers and the witches. It's probably it was like obviously that's a planet that you have to use Purgle to get to. And my thought was for that planet to stay hidden, maybe the Great Mothers do something so that Purgle die when they get there. So it's a one way. It's only a one way. So they otherwise you would have a lot more people probably who knew where that place was.
Yeah.
Which, of course,
Well,
you mentioning them going away the opposite direction, that will probably, I can imagine that tying into something else where this is how we get other characters to Peridia. Like, where where do these Purgle come from? These Purgle just jumped out of hyperspace
Mm-hmm.
and they have blaster marks all over them. Something must have happened to him. And right as they did, Grand Admiral Thrawn just showed up somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Ahsoka left with, because Ezra would know, Ahsoka and Sabine left up with a Purgle. No, I'm sorry, Ahsoka left with a Purgle, and
Mm-hmm.
she didn't come back. So that I feel like that could be a plot point somewhere
Mm-hmm.
down the line.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, it's a great theory to think. You're exactly, I mean, once again, this would be you submitted it for me to make a video, but I'm going to not take your suggestion and make you make a video about it because you need to start a YouTube channel. But, I mean, so it's like, yeah, I mean, what is the motivation behind the Great Mothers even wanting to help Thrawn in the first
Yeah,
place?
well, you get the implication in the last episode that there's some ulterior motive that they have because
Mm-hmm.
there's the moment where Thrawn is talking to Morgan and he says, "For the Empire," and he walks away and she's staring at him as he's leaving. And once he's really far away, she says, "For Dathomir." And it felt very much like backhanded. Like this isn't like there's another reason we're going there and it's not for you.
Mm.
It's
So he's,
possible the great mothers already know what kind of person he is, or they have an idea that he's because the Grand Admiral Thrawn is very, as we saw with Sabine when he sends her out, and then like 2 seconds later he's just like, "All right, go kill her."
you do got to realize that the Empire did kill all the Night Sisters.
yeah, well, that's what
At one
I think
point.
you were hopping back on while Travis was saying that. So Travis's theory is basically one way that Ahsoka and Sabine can get off Peridia is that the Great Mothers will realize, if they don't already, that they're aiding an empire and a guy who supports the empire, who the empire was basically created by the Sith, and the Sith are the ones who destroyed all the Night Sisters on Dathomir. So they have a reason to turn on Thrawn and want to help
Interesting.
Ahsoka and Sabine get back by what you say, Travis,
Oh,
resurrecting the Purgle to have them come back.
yeah, it was just a thought because if they can resurrect stormtroopers, who's to say they're just like the only way they're gonna kill Thrawn is with Jedi. So you just see like the Great Mothers do that little chant they do, and we see a bunch of the Purgle bones form together again, and like green magic
Ooh,
forms around them, and then they come down, and then you have Ahsoka and Sabine, and it would be even cooler. This is where I will
that's
reach.
interesting.
How cool would it be if, because this is a planet like a planet of Mortis, which it does look like. See, it obviously is connected to Mortis somehow. What if we have the ghosts of other Jedi who are just like, you can't do this alone. This is like the area where the cosmic force and the physical force kind of blurs, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe and we get someone like Anakin, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and some Jedi like joining, and they all get on some Purgle and they all fly out like dead Purgle and fly out of there. But just for the benefit, that's reaching. But just the visual of Ahsoka and Sabine flying like these Ghost Rider looking Purgle through hyperspace, that even if that doesn't happen, that sounds awesome. Like
That
I
seems
can
like
picture it.
this seems like a very Dave Filoni move. I mean, if you think
Yeah,
about
and
it.
just like, and it made me even think more like, well, they leave when we saw them coming out of hyperspace. I don't want to say there was residue or something, but it definitely like it has some effect on the space around them. I'm like, what happens when a Night Sister create resurrected zombie corpse goes through light speed? Does that affect space at all? Like, and it was just introduced all these interesting concepts to me, and especially if we're dealing with this theme of like Ahsoka kind of dies, she comes back. Sabine
Mhm.
kind of dies, she comes back. Anakin kind of dies, he's back, and you have all these like Thrawn and Ezra. They were thought dead, they're coming back. This whole theme of these things that we thought are dead are coming back, and of course that foreshadows ultimately Palpatine coming back.
Yeah, and it makes sense that you could bring in Ventress potentially and use her as kind of like a catalyst with the Great Mothers to be like, because they may not know. I mean, we assume that they've been on Peridia for who knows how long.
I think it
May-
says that Thrawn awakened them when he got there.
Oh yeah. I think you're right.
I believe he awakened them somehow. So
Yeah.
they probably there's a
Well,
lot they probably don't know.
Well, do you think that they
if we're
got
talking,
stuck there? Do you think that they were maybe on Dathomir at one point and they wound up on Peridia and
Oh no, hold on. Might have to fact check this. Do you remember the episodes of the Clone Wars where Jar Jar and Mace Windu where they defeat Mother Talzin and they kill
not
her?
not Jar Jar and Mace Windu.
Yeah, this is the episode where they kill Mother Talzin. And there's a port they kidnap Jar Jar's girlfriend who is the Queen Queen Julia of that planet. But they're like Mother Talzin is the one where it's basically Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where
Okay.
they're trying to pull the souls of a bunch of people and sacrifice them to this weird portal thing that's going to resurrect Mother Talzin, and like you see her ghost.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a seed right there. Or I'm like, well, what if that portal or whatever it was supposed to be there? What if the idea was that it was going to be some sacrifice that was going to bring them from Peridia to our world, something like that?
Okay. Yeah, because I'm like they could have got stuck there, and Thrawn obviously gets there, awakens them, and then they're like, we want to go back to Dathomir, and then that's why they're helping him so that they can get back. But then Ventress shows up and is like, you do know, like, you're helping a guy who has aided the guy who slaughtered our people, and then that could turn into a whole thing. So is it reaching to think, because this is my current theory, is it reaching to think that they could use the world between worlds as a way to get them off of Peridia?
It's that's possible. It's like that is a way to leave, but it also it feels like it would start to feel like a cop out, I think.
Sure.
That's just me. That's just my first thought. I'm sure like once you showed it to me, I'd be like, "Oh yeah." But it feels like it feels like it can start being abused that way.
Sure. Yeah. Because I'm just thinking, like you said, I mean, we
well,
suspect this
and
planet
remember,
to be a place where the cosmic and living force are that's blurred, right? And
That's
so,
what I said. That's what I said.
yeah.
They never yeah.
But I mean, you're not wrong to think that, because I mean, we see Mortis that way. That's what the world between worlds is, and so we're
Sabine
getting into
thinks
that.
yeah, Sabine does see Anakin. She just doesn't see him
Yes.
as strongly as
Yeah.
Ahsoka.
Yeah. So we're getting into that territory, and I don't know. I agree with you. It'd probably be the easy way out, but I don't know. And part of me is like, are they even going to get
well,
off Peridia?
I like Zombie Purgle. I
also
like
Zombie Purg.
realize Dave Filoni has already kind of set the rules for this, right? In A World Between Worlds, you have to go back through the portal that you came. You can't jump into, or you're not supposed to, at least. Like Ezra kind of broke it, but he didn't understand that. Ahsoka did and was like, "Hey, no, we need to go back our separate ways."
Yeah. Yeah, but he was all when Ezra was there, he was looking at different points of time. But I think it's within the realm of possibilities within the world between worlds that it'd almost be used as like a teleportation system. Especially for someone like Ahsoka, who, if you've watched my videos, I think that she's going to have a strong connection with that realm, just like we kind of suspect Anakin. But it is probably getting more into maybe not a reach, but it would probably be the easy way out, and Zombie Purgle would be a little bit more creative, I suppose. So we'll see where it goes. I know it's a good theory. I'm excited to see where they take Ahsoka season 2. What's your most anticipated project right now, Travis?
It's Andor season 2, TV wise. But actually it's so tough. I'm looking at Star Wars books, right? I'm looking at my Star Wars books and seeing there's that I think it's called Mask of Darth Vader or something like that. The Rise of Kylo Ren comic book. I'm really looking forward to that one. But yeah, probably Andor season 2.
Okay, well, let's talk about Andor season 2. So I assume you've seen the trailer.
Yes.
How'd you feel about the rock and roll music?
It felt like when you're on YouTube and then Disney Plus it's like a Disney Plus commercial that's montaging through all of their content.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, what if there were a place where you could see Iron Man? And then it's I want to get away. I want to fly away. And just like in Star Wars. And that's what it felt like. It felt like just like what they did with the Skeleton Crew trailer where they used Major Tom by Peter Schilling in Huttese. I think they're experimenting with mixing Star Wars with mainstream marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I feel. It didn't bother me, but it did mess with the tone a little. It didn't mess with the tone. I was struggling to figure out what the tone of the trailer was.
Yeah.
Because there were parts in the trailer. There's a part where they're just cutting between different people screaming. And it was very different screaming. Like there was like people screaming in pain, people screaming because they were dying, and then people like laughing and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on here? It was interesting because we have like these different clashing of tones. And then we have this moment where Saw Gerrera is yelling at someone. And I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be funny, but the trailer makes it seem like it's supposed to be funny.
Yes.
And like this big but to tell you the truth, I was so I was so like just wrapped up in like, okay, I'm seeing all these characters again, and people are gonna say like, oh, they're showing too much. But I'm like, no, it's like for me, it's just we know how this guy's story ends. He dies, so it's sort of like just celebrate celebrate the hero and everyone everyone in his life before he dies. That's what it felt like to me.
I'm so glad you brought up the Saw Gerrera thing because I still don't know if that is supposed to be. There's no way.
Man just saw it. Yeah.
There's no way it's supposed to be comedic, right? There's no way.
Okay, maybe it's just me.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I want to hear what Journeyman has to say about the trailer.
So I think we all know where I stand on Andor season 1. I think this will be a better season than Andor season 1.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that you said that.
It looks a lot more action-packed than the first season. My gosh. I agree with you. I don't know how I feel about the mashing of like pop culture and like or mainstream media culture and then Star Wars. I don't think I like that, but it felt a lot more action-packed and a lot more upbeat than it felt like the first season was.
Man, there was some action in that first season. Like we got to see an Imperial officer eating Captain Crunch with his mom. You remember that?
He's like, oh yeah, you're almost 40 years old, but I made sure to pick out all the Captain Crunch and leave you all the berries because I know that's the way you like it.
That was so action packed. I'm just kidding. I love season 1, but it's an acquired taste. I could see watching it. I'm like, yeah, some people are gonna hate this.
Well, we need to take a vote. This is democracy after all. Can we just take a vote and just? I'm still stuck on Saw Gerrera. Is that supposed to be a comedic moment or no? Travis? Is it supposed to be comedic or not?
Okay, to be fair, there were some comedic moments with him in Rogue One where it felt like just the way I can't. Okay, there's the part where I'm trying to remember exactly what's happening in Rogue One, but it's when he first meets Bodhi, and there's this long pause where or Saw Gerrera is just staring at him, and then he sucks out of his oxygen thing, and he lets it go, and it falls down, and then a few seconds later, it just goes boom, and it sucks back into his chest. And like moments like that, I think were supposed to be funny. But to be fair, I was laughing at everything with him in the movie. Lies, deception. Poor Gullet will know the truth. I'm just like that. It wasn't funny. It was more so that it was light and charismatic. He like Forrest Whitaker plays it so charismatically, where it's supposed to feel loony. He feels like you're not supposed. He just comes off very out of it, like he's high or something. I think that's kind of the point.
Journeyman, first of all, you know what we're talking about. Now that you're caught up to speed with the Saw Gerrera quote we're talking about, right?
What did he say in the? What does he say?
He says like fight or it's something to fight. You need to fight or something like that. But it's like the way he's saying it. It's like you want to fight or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
But yeah, the rock music made it seem like it, and it was like right after we just get the montage of people screaming in pain and delight. It was just really, it was bizarre.
Yeah, my vote is that it comes across as comedic in the trailer, which may be intentional, but it's not. There's no way that it's supposed to be solely a comedic moment in the actual show, but I guess we'll find out.
I mean, just from the trailer, I think it'll be a better season than the first season.
I think it will be too. And so let's talk. So just for context, like this episode, this podcast will probably, I think I'm going to have them release on Saturdays. So this will come out on Saturday. So we will have already given our thoughts on the live stream on Thursday, more of our thoughts. So I don't want to make this about us so much on what we think just yet, but I do think so. The trailer came out yesterday, and then they also released news that they're going to drop them as 3-episode mini arcs, which we already knew that they were going to be, 12 episodes and then 3-episode kind of pods of mini arcs that take place. And then I think there's like a year time jump between that. And then they said yesterday that we're only going to get 4 weeks of Andor. They're going to drop all 3 episodes, the mini arcs, at the same time. So we're literally getting basically 4 Andor movies in the span of a month.
How do you feel? So
okay, I was like,
that.
I do too.
I don't know if you guys have been watching Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Disney Plus.
I have not.
Plus, no. They've been dropping that in like 3-episode arcs too, and the show is fantastic. Like it's so good, but and I think Disney Plus has figured it out, and I think this is where they get a leg up, because Netflix's new strategy seems to be split the season into 3, but then spread it across months, which I think is horrible. I think that's an awful idea, because you lose the audience attention span when you do it like that. But like doing the 3 to 4 mini episode arcs, you feel like you're getting a complete story and you have time to sit on it, instead of getting a 1/10 of a story and then being cut off and feeling cheated, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and like I said, Journeyman and I will talk more about, I think, this more in depth on Thursday when we do our live stream. But this is what I've been wanting, like on all the Star Wars shows. Like there's so many episodes that I'm like, man, if they would have just released these 2 together, or maybe they would have combined these and did something like that. Like the conversation week to week that fans have could look so different just by how they release the episodes, in my opinion. So I'm like, it kind of makes me, I'm really excited about it, but it makes me wonder if we're going to have some episodes that are a little bit slower, and they're like, nah, we got to just drop them all at this. Like, not that they're going to be bad episodes, you know what I mean? But like, I think they kind of struggled with how fans perceived the first season. And so I think they're really trying hard to make sure that they do everything they can correctly. or best they can to set themselves up for success with season 2. So yeah.
Well, don't. Okay, I should warn you. In the future, I'm not the best person to go to and ask, was this funny or not? Because in Andor, in the finale, when they take his mother's headstone and they have a guy smack a stormtrooper across the head with it, I thought that was the funniest thing. It was so. I think it was supposed to be, and it's very much in tone with what we're talking about in the trailer. It's not supposed to be funny, but it's supposed to be like a triumphant almost.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, even in death, this person is going to keep fighting. But it was just like you just see someone's gravestone used to smack someone upside the head. Or that one Imperial officer who takes his jacket and throws it on top of the projector, but it was so lousy and it just falls off. I'm like, you couldn't even try. You could have just sat on it.
I got to go back, and I'm going through a rewatch right now. I'm only on episode 2, but I'm trying to get caught up on Andor before the first season drops. And I just made a video about 5 possible cameos, and again, this is me. This is where I start to reach, and probably none of them will even happen, with the exception of maybe Bail Organa. I think we could maybe see Bail Organa. He was involved with the Kenobi project, which I think was filming. Nah, it wasn't. They may have been filming around the same time. I don't know. I think we could see Bail Organa.
I think so. Because they did, it was either a Vanity Fair or an Empire magazine cover. Do you remember this? And it had Ewan McGregor, it had Pedro Pascal, it had Rosario Dawson, and it had Diego Luna on it.
Yep.
They could have just gotten them for a shoot, but I got the impression that they were all shooting at the same time, the shows, so they just got them all to stand together.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably, I think we expect to go back to Yavin 4, so I think it's very possible that we see him. One thing that I think is going to be interesting to see play out, I've heard a lot of people talk about this. Journeyman, you should pull this up just to make sure I get this down, or you could share what this is. I'm sure, Travis, you know, but is it the Gorman Massacre? Are you familiar with that, Travis?
Is that the audio that they play for Cassian's girlfriend that makes her, like, as a torture experiment or whatever?
I don't
remember. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, vaguely. Like, I gotta catch up on those episodes because it's been 3 years, I guess, now since I've watched it. I don't know for sure.
You said, once again, going off of my of what's funny to me, when you said Gorman Massacre, I thought you said Gamorrean Massacre, and when I thought of Gamorrean Massacre, I thought of those Boba Fett's 2 Gamorrean guards getting pushed off a cliff. And that one episode of Book of Boba Fett, that was funny. That made me laugh so hard.
Not that massacre. I think it's the Gorman Massacre. Journeyman, did you pull it up? Because I've heard that this is going to be central. I think we hear about it in Star Wars Rebels, but if you pulled it up, tell us what you found, because I think it's going to be important to Andor season 2.
So this is off of Wikipedia, of course. The Gorman Massacre, also known as the Massacre on Gorman, was an incident that took place in 2 BBY, in which troops of the Galactic Empire slaughtered peaceful protesters on the planet Gorman. Magva Yarrow, who had been taking part in the protest, survived the massacre and ended up joining in Saw Gerrera's partisans. Reports of the massacre reached whoever and who worked closely with the Rebel Alliance intelligence service.
Okay. Well, does it say anything about Mon Mothma in there?
Yeah, just after. I didn't know how much you wanted me to keep reading. It says,
read the Mon Mothma part, because obviously Mon Mothma is going to be a big part of Andor season 2.
Following the massacre, Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrilla, I forgot, whatever, publicly blamed Palpatine for the attacks on Gamorrean inhabitants, prompting the Empire to attempt to capture her.
Okay. Yeah. We've heard that she's going to be on the run in Andor season 2. So I think this Gorman Massacre is going to be very central to probably at least one of those mini arcs, if not maybe a couple. I think that's going to be really interesting to see play out on screen. So it's a massacre by the hands of the Imperials on peaceful protesters. And then Mon Mothma publicly blames the Emperor for what happened, and that causes them to be like, basically try to censor her and capture her. And I think that's when she officially joins the rebels and really sets herself apart from the Senate and the Empire, and kind of like begins the formations of the Rebel Alliance in a more organized way. I'm really curious too. So, like I said, I got to go back. Luthen, is it Luthen Rael? Is that his last name? Luthen
Yes.
Rael. What is his involvement again? I don't want to put you on the spot, Travis, but why is he important to this story? I literally can't remember anything about Andor season 1. I got to go back and refresh my memory.
I haven't seen it in a year. I think I mentioned this before when you had me on the live stream. It's amazing how much you forget about Star Wars when you're in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And you're, like, the most basic things. But he was posing as a not a thrift store, an art salesman. He was recruiting the people to steal the money off of Aldani, I think it was. I think that's what it is.
Jerry, man, you got it pulled up.
So the overview on his Wikipedia page, it says, is a mysterious character in the Star Wars series Andor, played by Stellan Skarsgård. He's driven to destroy the Empire by any means necessary and is known for being resourceful and willing to travel to the galaxy to find what he needs. Some say he combines the gravitas of other people that we know. I'll actually get into the Wikipedia of it. He was a human male antique and dealer and revolutionary leader who led a rebel network and spy operation during the time of the Galactic Empire. Rael owned galactic antiques and objects of interest on the galactic capital of Coruscant through the gallery, was little more than a front for his network. Alongside his assistant, Rael secretly collaborated with others such as Senator Mon Mothma and militant Saw Gerrera to oppose the Empire.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically what season 1 was about. Is like him starting understanding his network and his connections to why he's making his decisions.
Now we expect him to die.
At least
right?
that's what I.
Yeah, in the finale, at least, I believe he goes to Ferrix, Andor's home planet, with the objective to kill Andor. And you're right. I can't figure out the exact reason, like off the top of my head. Like, once again, we're in front of a camera; it becomes really foggy. He was supposed to kill him, but then Andor gets on the ship with him, and then they start working together.
Yeah. That I will say on the rewatch, like I said, I'm only on episode 2. And the only reason why I can't seem to finish it is because I keep falling asleep. I'm either working on editing. It's not because of Andor. It's not Andor's fault. I'm just tired. I'm just so tired.
It's Andor.
Oh, wait, hold on. More like Cassian Blandor. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's just like I'm usually like editing a video or doing something, and it's late, and I can't keep my eyes open. But I got to say, the parts that I'm paying attention to are really, really good. I think that's what's going to be so great about releasing them 3 episodes at a time, is it's going to really, I think, hold people's attention more this time. And I don't think people will be as likely to kind of fall off the bandwagon, I guess, as the weeks progress. I hope people will be able to see it in its entirety, and I hope they get good numbers from it. So
yeah,
we'll see. Yeah, I think it'll work better for them in the long. I hope it works better for them. I hope it's a good move. And plus, they're going to be, hopefully they obviously follow the same thing that they've been doing since Ahsoka, and releasing these
early.
What is it? 8? It's 8 Central.
Yeah. 8.
And because I remember one of the problems I had with Andor was like I woke up at 3 a.m. for that. And then that really made me mad. So then I stopped waking up at 3 a.m. And then I was watching it at work. And yeah, so anyway, that's partly why I got to go back, is I was probably not as focused as I should have been watching Andor season 1. So anyway, what were you going to say, Travis?
Well, one thing that's interesting, and I think I mentioned it in the Discord here, is one thing that I hope we see is more context for Bodhi Rook and the cargo pilot from Rogue One and his relationship with Galen Erso, which was talked about in Rogue One, but that's all it was talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was the novel Catalyst that came, Rogue One Catalyst by James Lucchino, which was about Krennic and Galen's relationship. There was a book called Guardians of the Wills, which was about Baze and Shuret's relationship. Rebel Rising about Jyn and Saw Gerrera, and then of course the Cassian show. But we've never had anything in canon dealing with like Bodhi Rook's side of the story. He's like really the only character who hasn't been dealt with. We're just going off of what he tells us in the beginning of Rogue One. And he's my favorite character in that movie, the most relatable, I think. He's just this guy who his biggest insecurity is that he's going to talk and no one's going to believe him. And then of course a squid has to like mess up his brain. So he's like he doesn't know what he's talking about anymore. Yeah. And his whole arc is plugging in a microphone and speaking and praying that the people on the other side believe what he says, and then he gets blown up. But we got a solo episode with mostly the Imperial characters last season, and that's probably, I can imagine people falling asleep during that one. But yeah. you fell asleep and you missed all the Captain Crunch. But I feel like I would love a full episode dealing with Bodhi Rook's life as a cargo pilot, him meeting Galen Erso, Galen giving him that inspiration to change his life and to follow his heart. And then we end the episode knowing where he's going to end up in Rogue One. That would be really cool.
Yeah. I have high hopes for this next season. I mean, we're getting Krennic too, so bringing in Krennic will be really cool to see. And there's got to be, I feel like they're holding out some surprises. Well, and I mean, we talked about it last week on stream, but I think that they could potentially be doing some type of animated series where they're going to be bringing in Omega. It seems like they set up the Hera and Omega relationship back in I think we decided it was season 2. That's going to carry forward. So we'll see. I'm really curious on what they're going to be announcing at Celebration this April. I feel like they've got some things up their sleeve and they're just waiting to just drop it. I mean, I think a Kenobi season 2 could be a possible announcement, even though I'm not sure what story is there. I think that they could be maybe doing that. I've heard that could be a possibility.
I could send you a few pitches for that in the what is it called? The Google Docs. What is that?
It's a Google form. Yeah.
Google form. I can send you a few for what what just popped in my head for Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2, but I'll save that for later.
Yeah, save it for your own channel. You got to make your own channel. Do a channel, and then we'll have you back on the podcast whenever you've got a few videos out there so you can plug it. But no, I don't know. They've got to be doing something. There's got to be an animated series, I think, that they're going to announce. Those are more easy to hide, I feel like. Do you guys remember? I don't think anybody was talking about a Tales of the Empire before they announced that. Like, that was just out of nowhere. They dropped that.
No.
So who knows what they've been working on?
We knew Dave was writing them, like was doing them on his spare time, and that's why we got Tales of the Jedi in the first place. I wasn't expecting it from the Empire's perspective. I thought we were just going to get more Tales of the Jedi.
Well, we knew they had announced at a previous celebration that the Tales of the Jedi was a thing. They didn't even say anything at all about a Tales of the Empire. That was out of nowhere. So he just got a theory.
You know what would be cool? Tales of the Droids, where we follow. I'm serious. Tales of the
George
Droids,
would love that.
And we get to see. They did a one-shot comic book back in 2016 about Cassian. I think it may have been 2017 about Cassian meeting K2SO and reprogramming him. But just getting an animation, imagining Cassian or any of the original trilogy era characters in that animation is just cool already. But seeing Cassian meeting K2SO and then having to reprogram him, Oh man, this is so cool. Imagine we see C-3PO being built by a young little Anakin Skywalker, and like
Oh, that is cool.
that first relate like there's so much you could do. Hu Yang, you could even do, and he could be the one telling the story, or maybe R2D2 is the one telling the story. There's oh my god, imagine Hu Yang with Yoda when he first meets him.
Yeah, that would be cool.
See, there's something right there.
So going back to Andor season 2, really quick, what is the droid? I can't remember the red droid that we see in season 1, and Andor's droid. What is it?
Bimo, I believe.
Bimo.
No, or maybe that's the droid from Adventure Time. I don't know. You'd have to look. Someone would have to look that up.
Yeah, Journeyman fact check that. But anyway,
he's like, I want Marva. I just remember he says that a lot.
Well, so some are saying there was like a T-shirt or something, Andor season 2 merch, I believe, that some are saying that, I guess we'll say BMO for now, or we'll just say the red droid.
I mean, yeah, basically it's BMO. It's B2EMO.
Okay.
So you could call him BMO.
What's the Game Boy called in Adventure Time?
I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, I just remember a dog pees on him.
So BMO, we'll just go BMO.
Yeah,
BMO. The theory is that they're going to transfer the sentience of BMO into K2SO. Have you guys heard of that theory?
I got something that can build off that theory.
Okay.
That actually, I like that a lot. But I actually, we still have the manifesto that Cassian gets from one of the, I forget his name, when they're doing the heist on Aldhani, and he's the one who he shows Cassian his manifesto or whatever. He gets crushed by the crate of money and he dies. Remember, they take him to a surgeon and they try to save his life, but he dies. I couldn't help but like, even with the way that guy behaved, the way he spoke, it sounded a lot like K2SO. And then there's the moment when they're flying through the the storm or whatever, and he's like dying, and he gets up and he keeps saying climb, and I went back to the part in Rogue One where K2SO is holding back the stormtroopers, and Cassian and Jin have to get the plans, and K2SO keeps saying climb just like that, and it like. What if that man, and building off of what you're saying with his consciousness, what if in some way that manifesto is an algorithm that Cassian puts into K2SO and it somehow replicates his childhood droid and his friend who he couldn't save before?
Yeah. It's like the way that this piece of merchandise, I believe it was a shirt, was designed, it was showing that they were basically, that droid BMO and K2SO are one and the same. You have to go look up the artwork. If I can find it, I'll put it in the Discord. But
I'll have to look back at that comic book too that I have.
Yeah, they were really hinting at like they were the same, and so I think that'll be interesting, and I think a lot of fans want to see that. So we'll see. So another big piece of news, and I don't want to take it too out of the Star Wars universe because the fun is in the actual universe, but did you see the news of Kathleen Kennedy today?
Yeah. I saw a few posts about it.
Do you think that by Kathleen Kennedy leaving, do you think it's actually going to change anything at Lucasfilm, or do you think it's not going to matter to whoever is in charge? We'll still get most of the same.
I'm one of those people. I feel terrible whenever I always felt terrible when I saw someone like her get criticized, and I don't follow a lot of. I'm aware of a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. I just don't follow it, and whenever I look at that, I'm looking at the person who's Kathleen Kennedy is the person, and I'm just imagining like she produced E.T. in so many movies alongside George Lucas, and it is kind of heartbreaking to see her just get crapped on because she chose to take on the full weight of Star Wars, more or less, once George left, and then she was to blame for everything.
Yeah,
that really, it just kind of hurts. But I think what's going to happen is I think some people are going to walk it back a little bit and realize that I could be wrong, but realize that maybe their criticisms were aimed at the wrong thing, the wrong person, and that some of these things might still exist. The problems that some people have with Star Wars are outside of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them. Some of them are inside. Like there's quality issues with the shows, whatnot. But I think once she's gone, people are gonna figure out a new place to put their aggression and realize that they were putting it on one person. I think it hopefully will change people for the better. But I also think I think the easy name to go to is that either Dave Filoni or Dave Filoni might step up, which would be the logical choice. But once again, I don't know the government structure of Lucasfilm. I don't know what position he is already, where if he could possibly rise up to her spot, or if he's even worthy of that. But that's just my thought.
Yeah, Journeyman, you fact check this, but I think he's chief creative officer or chief. He basically holds
he's basically creative person over all the shows, like all the
executive something.
Shows.
Look it up, whatever his exact title is. But
it would be a lot of changing of guard, where like this person has to leave this position, neither person has to fill this position, so it'd be just like a big step ladder of figuring out who would be who. But just like Kathleen Kennedy worked on so many films with George Lucas back in Spielberg back in the 80s and 90s, Dave Filoni has been with George Lucas for probably over 20 years now. He knows Star Wars. He knows Indiana Jones. He knows Willow. He knows all of those properties because he homages them in so many projects. I think if anyone's worthy of carrying on Lucasfilm, it's him.
Mm-hmm. What's his title?
So he is the CCO, the Chief Creative Officer. He was promoted to this role in 2023. His responsibilities are he oversees the creative process for all Star Wars projects, involves himself in the development of projects in the beginning, works with head developer, and then reports directly to Kathleen Kennedy. So that's sort of what he does. We'll talk about this a little bit more on Thursday. I don't think he wants the title of Kathleen's job. I think it would be more Jon Favreau, if anything, to give that mantle to, just because Dave kind of wants to be behind the scenes anyways, of like doing the creative stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
You can kind of have Jon kind of doing the business sort of thing, or at least just get a person that works well with Dave. That's kind of what I want.
Yeah, and I think Kathleen probably. I mean, Dave Filoni never. I mean, well, it's his boss, so what's he going to say in public anyway? But
exactly,
I think they all probably work together. And to your point, Travis, I will say I know a lot of people have welcomed this news with open arms, but she did a lot of things. I mean, we're talking about Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni right now. Like, she was responsible for getting those two together and those two brains in the room. Just like she was responsible for some of the other projects that people don't like. And it will be interesting to see, because regardless of whoever's at the top, getting back into the realm of actual content, I don't think it's any secret for anybody that a lot of the things that were slated to release, like Rogue Squadron and some of these movies that keep getting delayed or postponed, or different writers, different directors, everything coming in, I think she bears the brunt of that. So we'll be curious to see, because I used to think like, what's happening? But you almost wonder if she's just trying to do the best job she can, and she gets pressure from even higher up at Disney being like, you got to go this way, you got to do this direction. So we'll see. We know that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni love Star Wars. And I would say that Dave Filoni probably knows more about Star Wars than Kathleen Kennedy does. So we'll see if that makes any difference. But I kind of suspect probably, I hesitate to say it'll just be more of the same. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I almost feel like I don't really know if you'll see like a actual, like, there may not even be a noticeable change But maybe just a different perception, which,
I
like
think
you
that's
said,
what
Travis.
everyone wanted, though. I think that's what everyone is excited about, is like recently, because she, like you said, she did do a lot of good things. But I think it's just like when you have the new sign under new management, everyone kind of breathes a sigh of relief from the old management. It's like, okay, yeah, that person was not very good for us. At least I have a new person, and I feel more comfortable going back there. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what people are celebrating. It's like,
Yeah.
it may not change, but at least the perception wise is it's going to be better.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how fans receive it. Let's end our conversation on a more upbeat note. So, this is something I was actually going to ask it at the beginning, but the conversation, it didn't flow into this question, which is
I
fine. So
take
we'll save it for the end.
I take responsibility for that.
No, I would actually prefer it be more
No.
organic and not just, like I said, an interview
Mhm.
style. So I prefer it. That's why I'm saving it for the end. What's your favorite Star Wars movie, Travis? I think you said Return of the Jedi. I know that last week. So since I already know the answer, why is Return of the Jedi your favorite Star Wars movie?
So first off, this is actually one of the things I was thinking about, Mike, is you didn't tell me what you were going to ask me, and I'm like, well, he's going to ask this probably. There's a misconception that when you criticize a story or something, someone will always jump out and say, I'd like to see you do better. And I think that's partially true, but it comes down to, you don't have to be a chef to know that something doesn't taste very good, if that makes sense. You know what you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Rise of Skywalker, and something just stuck out in that movie, like right in the beginning. I'm like, something's not working. And I realized part of what it was. The movie begins with everyone is just wants something. They're all wanting something. Poe Dameron and Finn, they're getting the plans for the Resistance. Kylo Ren, he wants to go to Exegol and he wants to find the Emperor, and then he does it. And then Rey wants to talk to the Jedi, and of who came before, she gets impatient, she gives up. And I realized, I'm like, that's not a way to start a story. A bunch of people being selfish who just want things. Return of the Jedi is a story that begins where we know what the objective is. We got to defeat the Empire. We got to redeem Darth Vader. We got to defeat the Emperor. We got to do all these things. Luke has to become a Jedi, but the movie begins in a genius way. We're going to take 40 minutes and get our friend back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, Lando, and the droids going through this painstaking effort and showing all of their vulnerability and getting this one person back. We see Luke Skywalker giving at his best as a diplomatic Jedi, giving into his anger and screwing up, falling into the Rancor pit. We see Leia very just humiliated in that outfit, and we see Lando get dropped into the Sarlacc and scream like a child. Like, we see these characters at their worst just so they can get somebody back who many would argue isn't that good of a person. And when you can do that to start a story, you instantly are invested in everybody. You're like, okay, I care about these people because they care about something else. And I think right then that's like a banger way to start a movie. But it's the movie where it's the sappy way to go is to say that everyone likes a good ending.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably one of, if not the best endings to a trilogy ever in history. The entire original trilogy as a whole is like the gold standard of setup and payoff, where literally every single thing that is set up in those movies is paid off at the end. Everything, even down to the Jabba the Hutt, who's only mentioned in episode 4 unless you have the special edition. He's just this guy who's mentioned. He ends up being a major villain in the third movie. Like, there was so much payoff there. But one thing that I found, this is gonna make people mad, but one thing that kind of bugged me is in A New Hope and Empire, Leia basically sat around and she was forced to be pulled around by dudes all the time. Like, this is where we're like, The Empire Strikes Back. They're like, this is where we're going. I have to get you here. We're doing this. And she has to cry while everything is going on badly around her. And I felt like, I'm like, well, they should have given her more to do. In episode 4, she plugs in a flash drive and she shoots a door. That's basically all she gets to do in that movie. Return of the Jedi, she gets to kill the biggest sleazebag in the galaxy by strangling him. That's pretty awesome. Like, literally everybody gets something to do. And I think that's important too. I think more than the other two, all of the main characters, even Lando, who just got introduced, gets probably the biggest moment in the trilogy when he gets to blow up the Death Star without the Force. How many people can say that? There's just that first act is so creative with the puppets and everything and the world building they do. There is so much just in that first 40 minutes. And then we go on and we get the Ewoks in on Endor with the scout troopers and everything. And we get the best space battle in all of Star Wars and probably the best aerial combat miniature sequence in probably the history of film, I would argue, with the battle over Endor. And more so, I would argue the best lightsaber fight in the trilogy. Some people won't agree. Some people will say The Empire Strikes Back. I don't think anyone's going to say Luke, Obi-Wan, and Vader in Episode 4 is the best one. It is what it is. But there's something so emotional about the one in Episode 6 because there's so much visual storytelling happening alongside the scripted storytelling and the performances, whether it be Luke hiding under the stairs and we see the shadow over his face while the light's on the other side as Vader taunts him and we're like, oh, which way is he going to go? Or even the detail that I didn't pick up on later where he's wearing a black uniform with a flap right here. And during the fight, I believe it's either during the fight or when he's pulling Vader out to the shuttle, the flap comes undone and reveals there's white in the inside. So basically telling you no matter what was going to happen, Luke was always going to be good. Stuff like that really stands out. And Richard Marquand, who directed the movie, I think that a lot of that goes to him. But there's just so much under this. I think more than the previous two, there's more under the surface in Return of the Jedi, as well as just having a surface level fantastic movie.
Yeah, there's really nothing. One of the things I love about those the original trilogy is, obviously they're made in the 70s and 80s, so visually the effects are nowhere like they are nowadays, but they're just cozy films, and they just like fill you with so much joy and nostalgia. And I think you're spot on with like just kind of the undertones of Return of the Jedi. And I really never thought about what you said of like everybody does something. Leia, Han, Luke, and Lando all have big contributions, I guess you could say, in that film. And I think that is really creative.
C-3PO gets to be a god.
Yes.
For a bit.
Yeah.
R2-D2 gets to carry some drinks around. There's a really funny scene where it was a funny moment where talking about like funny moments in Star Wars, there are so many moments in Return of the Jedi that make me laugh. There's a part where where R2-D2 and C-3PO are pulled down, and there's that one droid he's like, you are a feisty little one, but you will soon learn some respect. And he says, he's like, Jabba got mad with our last protocol droid and had him disintegrated. He says, disintegrated? And it broke my heart as a kid because we see this droid getting ripped apart limb by limb, and it looks like a mini version of the one who's talking. So as a kid, I thought, was that his son? And he just let him get destroyed. And even more than that, we get the gonk droid who's like, I think laughing while I thought he was getting tickled as a kid, but there's a gonk droid who's being put upside down while his feet are burned. And he's like, no, but he's laughing. I'm just like, what's going on? But I forgot what the point was. But I'll give you guys one thing that I think I brought up in the Discord once. One thing, because you asked my favorite movie, and it's something that I noticed that might change your perspective on the entire saga. Or it might you might think it's really stupid. Talk about setup and payoff. The trilogy begins and ends. It begins with Luke Skywalker needing Han Solo to get off Tatooine, and it ends with Han needing Luke to get off Tatooine. And it's amazing how that they did the work and we didn't even notice. And it also begins with Han Solo watching Luke train blindfolded and
Mhm.
criticizing Obi-Wan Kenobi, saying like just making fun of all of his ideologies, and saying like there's no like blocking blaster bolts blindfolded, that's luck. There's nothing else to it. And of
Mhm.
course, Ben says, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck. So from the perspective of Ben, there's only the Force
The
and
Force.
instinct and trusting in yourself. So Han was doubting Luke's ability to make a shot blindfolded, and then in Return of the Jedi, what happens? He's the one who's blind when he comes out of the carbonite, and he has to be held up by Chewbacca and make the shot on the Sarlacc so he can save Lando from being pulled in. And there's that moment where Lando's yelling at him. He's like, "Wait, I thought you were blind." And Han says, "It's fine. I can see a lot better." And there's a few ways to look at there's a few ways to look at that. One, Journeyman laughing, but the one way to look at that is it's Han. He's probably just like his friend's panicking, and he's just like, "I'm gonna put him at ease, even though I don't know what I'm doing." There's that. There's maybe he could see a little bit better, but I don't think he could see much better, because he says like when they're about to be thrown in, he's like, "I see a light blur inside a big dark blur." So I don't think he saw very much. But my thought is, and this goes back to like some people ask like, why would like they name their kid Ben? Leia, like before the context of the Obi-Wan trilogy, Leia knew Ben for like a day,
Mhm.
and the Han knew him for like a day too. And the day that he knew him, he just made fun of him, and people were like, "Well, he saved him from the tractor beam." I'm like, that doesn't seem like enough to me. But then I go back to Return of the Jedi, and this is just my take. Ben Han Solo, who he is in his moment where he's the most vulnerable and he can't see, goes back to that advice that he criticized Ben for giving Luke, saying like, "There's no way you can make this shot blindfolded," and then he has to be the one and say like, "I have to do what that guy said," and then he pulls it off. And then you go forward, and like when they're naming their kid, I think maybe Han was like, in my moment where I was at my worst, this guy's advice saved my friend. I think there's something beautiful in that. And I'm not sure if that was the intention, but it makes more sense. It makes him naming his son Ben later have more weight to it.
Yeah.
Just like he's the one. And then it lends credence to the idea maybe Han had the Force the whole time, which carries over into The Force Awakens when they're escaping the wreckage of Maz's castle. And Han shoots those two stormtroopers, and you see one behind him, and without looking, he like shoots one, and then he looks back as if to like be like, "Did I just do that?" And then, of course, it pays off in Rise of Skywalker when we see Han Solo appear to Ben Solo. And in my perspective, this is another take of mine. I don't think that he's a memory or a hallucination. I think, in my mind, that Han Solo is actually there, and he's finally manifested himself fully in the Force. We saw it twice, or I did, but this idea where we see Leia pass away holding his medal, I don't think that her saying Ben's name is what killed her in that moment. No, I'm like, what would be so powerful? What act in the Force would be so powerful that it would kill somebody? And I'm like, well, what if she amplified someone in the Force who wasn't as powerful to appear? That would probably take the last bit she had. And she's like, I'm going to let him have a moment with his son again. I think, and that's the way I look at it. And that's a take that stems from Return of the Jedi, but it kind of, for me, makes me appreciate the saga as 9 films instead of 6. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
No, okay. What you just did there, whenever I post this on Saturday, you just take what you said and you go put it in a video. There you go.
Yes.
There's your first video.
I saw Journeyman. He did this thing with his tongue where he stuck it in his lip. And that's the look of someone just like, don't try to make me like the sequels. That's what that was. I mean, he's just like, no. Yeah, I'm not.
No, but everything you said lines up to where I'm like, the sequels actually makes more sense than what we got. That's the calculation I'm doing in my head now. Is like, why didn't we get that more clearly? Why didn't we understand that more?
Yeah, it's just how my brain works, for better or worse. Whether it's
no,
like
but
forgetting,
But it's people like you that make people like us think maybe the sequels were good and like were actually taken care of, but maybe we just didn't see it in the correct way. And I'm still, and I still may not like the sequels, but it's people like you that can give me a different perspective and make me think a little bit on the process behind it.
To tell you the
Or
truth,
at least a different take.
Yeah, I did not like Rise of Skywalker, to say the least. But I just wanted, whenever I watch that movie again, I'm just like, I want to make this better for somebody else, because there's people who do like it, and I'm like, it is not enough to say I respect your opinion. For me, I obsess over things like that. I'm like, no, I want to know what you I want to feel what you feel. And if I can do something, if I can come up with a thought that like really enhances the way someone feels about something they already did love, or maybe they didn't, that's kind of part of, like, that's the best kind of conversation you can have. And that kind of goes back to you guys. It takes, you said like me having those perspectives helps you appreciate things more. It's you two allowing me to come on here and give that perspective. That's really even more admirable than that. So thank you for that.
Well, and it's not about us, but this is why I wanted to have you on as a guest, because I was like, if there's anybody who embodies kind of what we want to capture in these little podcasts, and I think it would be Travis, because he, we may not agree with him on everything, but that's exactly why we would want to do this in the first place, right? Is to get some competing perspectives and different ideas and get them on a platform, so to speak, so that we could talk back and forth. And
I don't think you agree with my shirt right now.
Listen, I will say, I think I can't remember where I mentioned this. I know I've talked about it, but I'm currently listening to Shadows of the Sith, right? Is that what it's called? Shadows of the Sith?
I think, yeah.
Oh, where'd he go? There it is.
Oh, there it is.
That's a big book. So I'm listening to it on Spotify. I didn't realize it was that big of a book.
I'm sorry. Did Ochi of Bastoon ever look? I totally cut you off, but this is not important at all, so it's not worth it. Doesn't he look like SpongeBob's grandmother to you?
He
like
does,
when I saw him in the movie, I'm like, hey, it's SpongeBob's grandma. She's gonna bake some cookies, boys.
Well, and I didn't realize this, but he, I think I'm on chapter 5, which, by the way, chapter 5 of the audiobook is literally 45 minutes long, which is insane to me. One single chapter is 45 minutes, but
gosh,
it's all about Ochi of Bastoon, and I didn't realize he was like basically on Exegol, I guess, kind of like recreated in a way.
So I want to hear what Journeyman says. I have a feeling it's about SpongeBob's grandmother, but let's hear it.
Chocolate. No, that's all I have. Chocolate.
Oh, that's funny.
He looks like that too. Maybe you know what? Maybe Exegol is a salt flat. Maybe it was Bikini Bottom at one point. Oh man,
it could be.
That?
It could be. Yeah,
that's a great Palpatine.
In the spirit of making the sequels, enhancing the sequels, I guess. I won't say make them better, but enhancing the sequels. I would highly recommend Shadows of the Sith, because it's a really fun. So far, it's been fun to listen to. So,
I don't want to plug myself, but I started writing a story right before, it was around the time Shadows of the Sith was announced, because it was an instance where I'm like, I think I know what they're doing, because I'm taking the pieces that are in front of us, and I'm like, I think I know what they're going to do. And they didn't do it, but I think you would really like, I'll put it together somehow. It would have tied together like everything. And they don't, it is not the way they do it in Shadows of the Sith. But yeah, I'll get that out in some form.
Yes, please. And we'll end it on that. Please, Travis, make a darn YouTube channel. And channel all your ideas into the YouTube channel. That's what you need to do.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing a fantastic job. Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Well, hopefully we can keep up the momentum, and life doesn't get too busy. So we'll definitely have to have you on again, whether it be live stream or podcast setup like this. And if you know anybody too that you would want to would be interested, any other content creators or YouTubers or whatever you want to call them to come on, definitely let us know.
I'll keep bringing them in. I'll bring them in. I remember I taught when I went into On Programs. Plug for Eddie and his channel. He's fantastic too, and they're all great people.
Does he still?
Yeah, they do. I think, like you said, life happens. Like as you get older, it's amazing how much time you don't have anymore, and it's refreshing to know that we spent some time like this. We're just like, at least we can say like, hey, we had time to talk about Star Wars for almost 2 hours. How many people can say that? Yeah. But I remember him popping in the stream. I'm like, hey, he's been assimilated.
He's been assimilated. He's part of the democracy now.
I'll keep spreading the word.
Okay, well, good. It was good talking to you, and
good talking to you. Yeah.
You keep up the good work with your theories, and we hope to see you in the chat and everything. So,
all right, sounds good. Have a good night, guys.
See you, Travis.
Yeah.